Did you know that each year over 1,600 people go missing in America's wilderness without a trace? Many of these vanish in deep woods, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions and whispers of something sinister. Are the woods just nature's playground, or is there something far darker lurking within? The deep woods have always been a place of mystery and dread. For centuries, they've inspired folklore about creatures that dwell in the shadows, ghostly apparitions that follow travelers, and sounds that defy explanation. But these stories aren't just relics of the past. Modern encounters suggest that some horrors might be more real than we're comfortable admitting. Tonight, we'll venture into these untamed places to uncover some of the most chilling deep woods horror tales. From eerie disappearances to spine-tingling legends, each story will remind you why the forest is as beautiful as it is terrifying. So, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and prepare to explore the shadows of the deep woods. What is it about the woods that stirs our deepest fears? Maybe it's the sense of isolation. Out there, far from civilization, you're at the mercy of nature, and perhaps something else. It's the kind of place where help feels impossibly far away. Strange noises seem louder, shadows feel closer, and every rustle of leaves could be something or someone watching. But it's not just our imaginations at play. The deep woods have long been the setting for real-life disappearances and encounters that defy explanation. From mysterious lights to chilling screams in the dead of night, many people have stories that begin with a walk in the woods and end with an experience they'll never forget. One of the most unsettling stories comes from the forests of the Pacific Northwest, where tales of the Wendigo have been passed down for generations. This creature, described as part human, part beast, is said to stalk those who dare to wander too far from the safety of the trail. Hunters have reported hearing whispers in the wind, calling their names, only to find no one around. The most chilling accounts come from people who claim to have seen glowing eyes staring at them from the darkness, always just out of reach of their flashlight's beam. Then there's the Appalachian Trail, home to a plethora of ghost stories and unexplainable phenomena. Hikers frequently report hearing footsteps that mimic their own, even when they're miles from another person. One story tells of a man who decided to camp alone in a remote area. Late at night, he awoke to find his tent unzipped and his belongings scattered outside, though he never heard or saw anything approach. The next morning he found strange footprints circling his campsite, barefoot, yet far larger than any human foot should be. One of the most famous deep woods tales involves the mysterious Bennington Triangle in Vermont. Between 1945 and 1950, 5 people disappeared in this heavily wooded area without a trace. Among them was Paula Weldon, a college student who went hiking one afternoon and never returned. Despite massive search efforts, including bloodhounds and helicopters, no trace of Paula, or any of the others, was ever found. Locals whisper about strange lights and ghostly figures in the area, and many refuse to venture there after dark. But the story that truly captures the terror of the deep woods comes from a man named Sam, who shared his account in hushed tones on an online forum. Sam was an experienced hiker who often explored alone, relying on his knowledge of the land and his survival skills. One fall afternoon, he decided to explore an unfamiliar forest in the northern Rockies. The day was uneventful, just the usual sights and sounds of the woods. But as dusk fell, he noticed something unsettling. The woods had gone completely silent. No birds, no insects, not even the rustling of leaves. Sam brushed it off and set up camp. As he prepared his fire, he began to hear faint whispering like voices carried on the wind. The whispers seemed to come from all around him, growing louder but remaining indecipherable. Sam shone his flashlight into the trees, but the beam seemed to be swallowed by the darkness. That night, he barely slept. At some point, he woke to a distinct sound, footsteps crunching on the forest floor, circling his tent. Summoning his courage, he unzipped the tent and stepped out, brandishing his flashlight and knife. But there was no one there. The footsteps stopped and the whispering began again, this time directly behind him. He spun around, only to see 2 glowing eyes staring at him from the edge of the clearing. They were unnaturally high off the ground, too far apart to belong to any animal he knew. The eyes blinked once and disappeared. Sam didn't wait for morning. He packed his gear in record time and hiked out of the forest by moonlight, refusing to look back. To this day, he swears he wasn't alone in those woods and believes that whatever he encountered wasn't human or animal. The stories of the deep woods tap into our primal fears of the unknown. These vast, shadowy expanses remind us how small and vulnerable we truly are. From legendary creatures like the Wendigo to modern-day disappearances in places like the Bennington Triangle, the woods are a place where reality and myth often blur. For some, the woods represent peace and solitude, but for others, they are a labyrinth of terror, where the line between imagination and reality vanishes like a footprint in the dirt. The deep woods have captivated us for centuries, and their legends continue to evolve with each passing generation. They remind us of the mysteries that still exist in the world, the questions we may never answer, and the stories that keep us looking over our shoulders as we walk through the trees. What makes the deep woods so terrifying isn't just the tales of monsters or ghosts, it's the unexplained. Take, for instance, the phenomenon of the staircases in the woods. Reported by hikers in remote areas across the world, these random staircases seem to rise out of nowhere, leading to nothing but empty air. No one knows how they got there or why they exist. Some say stepping on them invites bad luck or opens a door to another realm. One chilling story involves a group of friends camping in a national forest in Oregon. While hiking to find a good spot, they stumbled across one of these staircases. Against the advice of the others, one of the friends climbed to the top, mocking their fears. That night, he woke up screaming, claiming he couldn't breathe and clawing at his throat. By morning, he was gone, his sleeping bag unzipped as if he'd simply walked away. Search teams found no trace of him, and the group returned home haunted by what they'd seen and what they hadn't. Part of what makes these stories so bone-chilling is the isolation of the woods. When you're miles away from civilization, every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig feels amplified. Your mind plays tricks on you, turning shadows into figures and wind into whispers. But what happens when these sounds and shapes aren't just in your mind? A chilling account comes from a seasoned survivalist named Greg, who spent weeks at a time alone in the Alaskan wilderness. One night, as he sat by his fire, he heard faint music, soft, almost melodic, coming from the trees. At first he thought it was the wind, but the sound grew louder, more distinct, as if someone were humming a haunting tune. Grabbing his rifle, Greg scanned the area but saw no one. Then suddenly the humming stopped, replaced by a blood-curdling scream that seemed to come from right behind him. Greg didn't sleep that night. The next morning he found strange tracks around his campsite, long, narrow footprints with claw-like impressions. Though he tried to explain it away as an animal, he left the area immediately and never returned to that part of the forest. Imagine yourself in these situations. The thick canopy above dims the sunlight, and every step forward feels like a journey deeper into the unknown. Your senses are heightened, alert to every sound and movement, knowing that in the woods no one can hear you scream. One of the most spine-tingling tales comes from a pair of brothers hiking in the Ozarks. They set out on a weekend trip, hoping for peace and adventure. But by the second night, things took a dark turn. Around midnight, they both woke up to the sound of laughter, children's laughter, echoing through the forest. They were miles from any other campsite and hadn't seen another soul for hours. As they shined their flashlights into the woods, the laughter grew closer and more distinct, but no one was there. Suddenly, one of their tents collapsed, as if something, or someone, had pushed it down. The brothers bolted, abandoning most of their gear. To this day, they swear they saw small handprints on the outside of their tent as they fled. The deep woods have always been a place of transformation, a boundary between the familiar and the unknown. They lure us in with promises of serenity and exploration, only to confront us with our deepest fears. Each story of the woods serves as a reminder that we don't own nature, it owns us. Consider this. Why are there so many tales of people hearing their names whispered in the forest? Is it the wind, the trees, or something more sinister? Folklore tells us never to answer when the woods call out to you, for it may not be a friend, but a trickster spirit or something worse. The truth is, the deep woods hold secrets that may never be uncovered, and perhaps that's for the best. After all, some mysteries are better left unsolved, lurking in the shadows where they belong. Have you ever had a strange or unexplainable experience in the woods? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. And if you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my other horror-themed videos. There's plenty more to uncover, and who knows, The next story might just be yours.